welcome to this special program. COVID-19 has shaken up the world in more ways than one. While it has given rise to new challenges and uncertainties, the pandemic has also yielded some valuable lessons. There's far greater focus on what we eat, how much we exercise, and of course on our general hand washing and hygiene awareness. While dealing with COVID, we've overlooked the fact that people's lifestyles have been severely disrupted. And as a result of this, metabolic problems have become far too common. Unhealthy eating habits, lack of physical activity, the mental toll of isolation, the fear of contracting the virus in healthcare settings, all of these reasons have adversely impacted people with diabetes and heart disease. Now, a multi-sectoral approach promoting healthier diets, increasing physical activity can help to slow down the diabetic epidemic and the increase in heart diseases as well. Beat Diabetes, Myths and Facts will impact and help you to do precisely that, to control metabolic disorders. Today we have with us experts to share their medical advice with you in how you can lead a healthy life. Joining us on the program, Dr. Chitra Selvan, MBBS and MD Medicine, DM Endocrinology, MRCP Endocrinology. She's with the Ramaiah Medical College in Bengaluru. Also with us today, Dr. Hitesh Punyani, MBBS MD Medicine, Consultant Physician, Chaitanya Cardio Diabetes Center, New Delhi. We also have with us Dr. Sura Kishore Mishra, MD and DM Cardiology, FICC, FESC, Associate Professor, Department of Cardiology, MKCG Medical College, Behrampur. Thank you all for speaking to us today. Dr. Chitra Selvan, let me begin with you. Of course, we know by now that patients with diabetes are particularly vulnerable. They're more likely to get severe complications when they get COVID-19. But tell us a little more in particular about one term that we've heard now, but perhaps don't know enough about. What is COVID-19 inflammatory storm? And how severely does it actually affect diabetes patients?
Cytokine storm is an exaggerated response of our immune system to the COVID-19 infection. It usually occurs in the second week following the infection. And we do know that conditions in which immune responses might be altered, like for example, in diabetes, you can have an exaggerated response to the virus and have a more severe cytokine storm. But in the last year, we've learned lots, and we do know that having tight glycemic control even before you get infected could improve the chances of having a better outcome when you're infected with COVID-19. And also we do know that through the course of the illness itself, better glycemic control with the use of insulin or whatever medications are required to bring your sugars down will also definitely improve outcomes with a COVID-19 infection. So it's important to pay attention to what's in our control and get the sugars under control so that we have better outcomes even if we do get infected at all.
Fair enough. Dr. Punyani, let me bring you in. Are complications resulting from COVID-19 the same for type 1 and type 2 diabetes patients? Which type of patient or diabetes patient needs to really be most careful?
I'm so glad that you asked this, Ankita, because 19 conversations have always left out this the sibling of diabetes, which is type 1 diabetes, from its conversations most of the times. So it tends to fare differently from type 2, yes. In what ways? I mean, there are 2 or 3 differences between type 1 and type 2 in their management as well. One is that type 1 tends to have is a lot more dependent on your exogenous supply of insulin. So that the fluctuations in blood glucose levels, they tend to be a lot more in type 1 as compared to type 2. So these fluctuations, along with the lack of lesser production or almost nil production of insulin from the body, it tends to precipitate a condition known as diabetic ketoacidosis in people who are suffering from type 1 diabetes. Now, incidence of type 1 ketoacidosis goes up several notches when a person is infected with COVID-19. And now this ketoacidosis, it tends to worsen the morbidity and mortality both, and thus has a very direct impact on the prognosis of this disease. Apart from this, second thing which is different is that you tend to have lot more, you need lot more monitoring in people with type 1 diabetes. So initially with the lockdowns and when the supplies were not very good, So they were more dependent on insulin, they were more dependent on glucometers, strips for monitoring, some other technological support as well. So they were impacted a lot more as compared to type 2. And thirdly, I mean, again, because the population which is involved in type 1 is more of a younger age group, and many of them are children. So the amount of that what we call as psychological adaptive response was not something which was really worked upon in the initial part of the pandemic. So these are the certain differences. And if we go by the mortality statistics, so in type 1 the mortality is almost 3 times or more than the normal population. Vis-a-vis, if you compare it with type 2, the mortality is almost twice as compared to the normal population. So these are the difference between these two.
Dr. S.K. Mishra, how badly does COVID-19 affect patients with hypertension? Post-COVID, why is it that so many people with hypertension also seem to experience other complications?
Yeah, growing data shows a higher risk of COVID-19 infections and complications in patients who have got high blood pressure. And high BP is the most common shared pre-existing condition amongst all the hospitalized patients with COVID-19 infection. Whether this is only an association or a causal factor for getting COVID-19 infection, or its more difficult complications are not very clear. But again, most of these patients are aged and they have got baseline other confounding factors like diabetes mellitus, chronic kidney disease, and so on and so forth. So the incidence of hypertension as a pre-existing condition in these COVID-19 patients varies from 30 to 60%. So quite high incidence, and possibly because of existing atherosclerotic disease, because of hypertension and other comorbid conditions, these patients are prone for more dreaded complications, and this makes matter worse for those afflicted with COVID-19 infections.
Dr. Selvan, many people go for routine blood checkups, and that's when they notice that their blood sugar is very high. But they've not actually sort of felt any different. There have been no symptoms as such. Is there any way of determining whether your blood sugar is high, or, knowing when to test?
Up to 70% of people who have type 2 diabetes, which is the most common form of diabetes, have no symptoms at all. Which means right now, we could be having high sugars and there's no way to know unless you've got a blood test. And I did get a blood test today. So who should get a blood test? So I'll answer that question. If you're an Asian Indian, which means the entire country are at risk, because as compared to rest of the ethnicities, Indians are more predisposed to get type 2 diabetes. If you have a family member with type 2 diabetes, if you are overweight, if you have a sedentary lifestyle, if you have hypertension or cholesterol issues for which you're getting treatment, if you have PCOS, and if you've had diabetes during your pregnancy, all of these are risk factors for type 2 diabetes. And if you actually sit down and do an honest recount, all of us are at risk for diabetes. So in fact, everybody who's above the age of, let us say, 25 years should get their blood sugars tested. So we started out with an age cutoff of 45, thought of 40, then 35, and this year it's been devastating for us to look at individuals as young as in their 20s, even school children who've been found to have high sugars when they routinely got checked after they tested positive for COVID.
Right. Let me also bring in Dr. Punyani at this point. Most diabetes patients also appear to have other comorbidities like hypertension and obesity. So, in your opinion, what would be the symptoms when a diabetes patient is about to have a heart attack, and what should they do at such a time?
So normally I think diabetic patients, they also tend to have almost similar symptoms of heart attack. You tend to get chest pain, you tend to have sinking sensation, a lot of sweating which happens. But this is some place, in type 2 diabetes, it's almost like we take analogy from Sherlock Holmes, where he takes a clue from the dog that didn't bark. So here again, at times we tend to get silent MI, which means that we don't have very clear symptoms like chest pain, like sweating, or that sinking sensation. They may not be there, or they may be there in a very, very subtle form. So that's the reason that our index of suspicion needs to be very, very high. If you're seeing a patient with some chest discomfort, maybe epigastric pain, maybe pain going to the neck, but our threshold for going for the investigations should be quite low in this kinds of patients. So that's very, very important, because the dog that didn't bark, that's need to be caught here.
All right, thanks very much for that. There is so much more to talk about. We will take a very quick break on Beat Diabetes, Myths versus Facts, and come back with lots more of your questions on how to tackle diabetes and hypertension in a post-COVID time. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Beat Diabetes, Myths versus Facts, where medical experts take your questions on how to cope with diabetes and hypertension during the COVID pandemic. We have our medical experts with us. We've just been talking to Dr. Selvan about how to really know when your blood sugar could be high and what to do about it. I also want to go across to Dr. S.K. Mishra, Dr. Surakishore Mishra, on, similarly for high blood pressure. Now, obviously, high blood pressure has no obvious symptoms, Dr. Mishra. How does a patient know when something is wrong with them? What complications can develop if indeed this is something that is ignored? And what are the typical numbers when people should know, okay, this is the time when I need to seek medical advice and get help?
Okay, as you rightly pointed out, person with high blood pressure may be totally asymptomatic and thus betraying the signs and symptoms of fatal or near fatal complications that may suddenly crop up without any notice. So because of the asymptomatic nature of hypertension, one has to be very careful, and regular measurement of blood pressure can prevent many complications to develop. So regarding numbers, hypertension is usually defined as office blood pressure recording of more than 140 by 90 milligram mercury. But of late, this number has been pruned down to 130 by 80 by different associations. So if somebody has a blood pressure of 140 by 90 or more, so besides lifestyle changes, diet, exercise and cessation of smoking, one has to take medications after consulting his physician.
Dr. Selvan, we know that diabetes can affect almost every part of the body, but specifically, does it affect legs and feet more? What do we mean when we say advanced neuropathy? What are the warning signs for patients, and what can we do to prevent advanced neuropathy?
Yes, so diabetes affects almost all organs in the body, primarily because it affects the blood vessels which feed all the organs in the body. So when you get neuropathy, it happens secondary to diabetes because the blood vessels which are supplying blood to the nerves are affected by high blood glucose levels. Now, the longest nerve fibers in the body happen to be the ones which supply to the legs, and that's why much of the neuropathy symptoms start with involvement of your lower limbs. But if it's not tended to or taken care of, it can progress upwards, and it could even affect the ends of your fingers. Apart from the most common form of neuropathy which presents like this, you could have individual affections of a single nerve, like for example a nerve in the eye which could lead to double vision or your eyelids closing down, or it could affect a bunch of nerves in your thighs and you wake up with sudden pain and inability to get up from your chair or walk. All of those are neuropathies. And the most important thing that we should all remember as we continue to provide support for people who have diabetes or have diabetes ourselves is what we do in the first few years after diagnosis of diabetes is probably the most crucial window where we can actually change the way all of these manifestations happen 1 or 2 decades later. And this is a point which is very difficult for people to grapple because when they're present in the first few years with diagnosis of diabetes, they're actually feeling fine, right? And it's difficult for them to understand that maybe at the end of a decade, I'm going to be having burning in my feet. So thereby, I need to do something now. But I think this is an important message to get across.
Yes, indeed. I think, the advanced warning signs are the ones that perhaps we tend to overlook most. And that's a very important warning that you put out there, Dr. Selvan. Dr. Hitesh Punyani, what are the microvascular complications of diabetes and, which parts of our body does that affect?
So again, the microvascular complications, as the name suggests, it affects the small blood vessels of our body. So diabetes, as Dr. Selvan has said, that it's a disease of blood vessels, both large blood vessels and small blood vessels. When small blood vessels are affected, we tend to call it microvascular disease. And the organs commonly affected are your kidneys, what we call as nephropathy, eyes, what we call as retinopathy, and the nerves, as she explained, called as neuropathy. So these are the three main systems which are involved in microvascular disease of diabetes. And the good part is that there is a lot of data now. If we control diabetes and if we have a good catch, so we can have really good reduction in the amount of microvascular complications of the patient.
Right. Thank you for that. Dr. Selvan, one last question to you. And, what are the various approaches that a patient can take when, in fact, they have diabetes and when they want to monitor and maintain sort of glucose levels? Is it just going to be insulin or oral medications or, which of these is the best approach?
Right. So there has been a lot of advancements in the management of diabetes in the last 2 decades. And everybody should now have conversations with their healthcare providers to find the right option that will work best for them. We now have medications which not only bring blood sugars down, but could also change the way in which diabetes progresses. Meaning, we do know that diabetes increases the risk of heart disease, and now we have medications which can lower your risk of heart disease, lower your chances of getting kidney disorders secondary to diabetes. So having these conversations with your healthcare provider is important. Reaping the benefit of the advances of medical science is equally crucial. And continue to tend to diabetes care once in 3 months consistently right from the start is as crucial as putting in measures to prevent it amongst our family members. Prevention of diabetes, I think, is something that is definitely an area where we all can pay attention to. So if you have a family member with diabetes, be on the high alert that we are at risk already. And it takes just consistent small efforts and changes through years to improve your metabolic health. We assume that if you need to get healthy, you need to go to the gym 5 hours a week, not eat anything. It doesn't really translate into that. It could just mean consistent 30 to 40 minutes, any small change, anything better than where you are this week, and make consistent progress with each possible week, and make an attempt towards eating healthy and look at eating as a way of nourishing your body. So I'm hoping that everybody will be able to take care of their diabetes and their own people's diabetes better after this.
Right. Those are practical, useful, actually implementable steps, Dr. Selvan. So, thank you very much indeed for putting it out so succinctly. Thank you all, Dr. Selvan, Dr. Mishra, Dr. Punyani, for being with us on the show. We hope your questions have been suitably answered. The big takeaways from the program: keep monitoring, be aware, make incremental changes in order to keep diabetes and hypertension in check. Thanks for watching.